Justine Wilson walked out of his life the same way he walked into the future, fast, cold, and unstoppable. Their divorce happened when something showed her that the man she married no longer existed. So, what exactly happened? And how did the world's most ambitious man become impossible to love? In Ontario, Canada, in the early 1990s in Queen's University campus, Justine Wilson was an 18-year-old English literature student from Peterborough with dreams of becoming a fantasy novelist. She'd spent her senior year as an exchange student in Australia, earned a black belt in Taekwondo, and possessed the kind of quiet confidence that doesn't need validation. When a skinny Elon Musk with awkward social skills approached her suggesting ice cream, she politely declined. Most guys would have taken the hint, but Elon showed up at her dormitory door hours later, clutching 2 ice cream cones already dripping down his hands. He'd refused to accept no. Years later, Justine would remember that moment as sweet. She didn't think that sweetness would bring a bitter aftertaste. If she did, she would have recognized the moment for what it actually was, a preview. They dated on and off through university. When Elon transferred to the University of Pennsylvania after 2 years, the distance should have ended things. But Justine told her sister she'd reconsider if he reached out again, and he called exactly 1 week later. It seemed like she had her own private fantasy story going on. After graduation, she taught English in Japan for a year while Elon moved to Silicon Valley and started building companies. Then in 1999, everything changed. Elon sold Zip2, his first major venture, for roughly $37 million. Overnight, the struggling entrepreneur became a multi-millionaire. He bought an 1,800-square-foot condo, a McLaren F1 supercar, a small plane. The world of private jets and flying lessons felt surreal to Justine, but she believed they were building something together, a partnership between a dreamer who wrote stories and a dreamer who built empires. In late 1999, the two of them got engaged. And then something happened. Elon had arranged a meeting with a lawyer. He told Justine it was a financial agreement his company's board wanted them to sign. When she hesitated, he quickly clarified it's not a prenup. It was technically true. It was a post-nuptial agreement since they signed it after their engagement. Justine trusted him completely. Why else had she agreed to marry him? She signed without extensive review. That decision became the ghost that would forever haunt her. In January 2000, they married. And at their wedding reception in 2000, while they danced, Elon leaned close and whispered something that should have shattered the entire evening. "I am the alpha in this relationship." Justine laughed it off, shrugged, figured it was just awkward phrasing. But that statement wasn't a joke. It was a declaration and a sneak peek preview of how he viewed their entire dynamic. He didn't see them as partners. It was a hierarchy with him at the top. 2 years after their wedding, their first child, Nevada Alexander Musk, was born. For 10 perfect weeks, their world expanded beyond startups and novels. But they didn't see the next part coming. Without warning, Nevada stopped breathing and their baby was gone. Most marriages don't survive the loss of a child. Grief either brings couples together or drives them permanently apart. For Justine and Elon, it drove them apart. She grieved openly, desperately needing to process the unimaginable pain of losing a child. She wanted to talk about Nevada, to remember him, to sit with the devastation. Elon refused. He compartmentalized, locked the emotions away, and according to Justine's accounts, explicitly told her he didn't want to discuss it. When she tried, he'd shut down the conversation entirely. "We can either wallow in sadness or we can move forward," he reportedly said. To Justine, it felt like erasure, like their son had been deleted from Elon's operating system. To Elon, it was survival. He didn't know how to solve grief. So he did what he always did, moved to the next problem. Despite their loss, they still wanted to become parents. And in 2004, they welcomed twins, Griffin and Xavier. Then 2 years later, in 2006, triplets Kai, Saxon, and Damien arrived, 5 children. Their house should have been filled with laughter, chaos, and warmth. But instead, Justine felt increasingly invisible. She described it in her essay as becoming Elon's trophy wife, a term that stung because she'd fought so hard to maintain her own identity. She was a published author. Her debut novel, Blood Angel, came out in 2005. Uninvited followed in 2007. She had her own career, her own voice, her own dreams, But Elon's world was expanding so rapidly that everything else got sucked into his gravitational field. He'd remark constantly on the ways she didn't measure up, her weight, her appearance, her decisions. When she'd protest, reminding him, "I am your wife, not your employee." Then he'd reportedly respond, "If you were my employee, I would fire you." He allegedly said this repeatedly, not once in anger, but as if it were obvious logic. During those years, Elon was building two impossible companies simultaneously. Tesla was hemorrhaging money, constantly on the brink of bankruptcy. SpaceX had failed 3 rocket launches and was one failure away from collapse. His attention wasn't divided between work and family. There was only work with brief interruptions for family obligations. When he was physically present, his mind lived elsewhere. Justine felt like a supporting character in someone else's origin story. And then came the car accident. In spring 2008, Justine was driving when another car collided with hers. No one was hurt, but Justine's first thought wasn't, "Thank God nobody's hurt." It was, "My husband is going to kill me." That realization, standing beside her expensive car with the front left wheel demolished, shattered something final. She saw herself clearly for the first time in years. Very thin, very blonde, because Elon had repeatedly pressured her to go platinum, even though she'd been brunette when they met. She'd become someone she didn't recognize. Shortly after, they attended couples therapy. Even there, Elon treated emotions like inefficiency. When their therapist asked, "Do you even see what she needs?" Elon reportedly responded with characteristic bluntness, "If she has a problem with the way I am, she knows where the door is." Weeks later, Elon sent the message, not through the therapist, but using the therapist as a messenger. He was filing for divorce. The marriage was over. No negotiation. According to Justine, 6 weeks later, she received a text. Elon was engaged to a gorgeous British actress named Talulah Riley, whom he'd met at a London nightclub. She was in her early 20s, had played one of the sisters in Pride and Prejudice, and had moved to Los Angeles to be with him. Justine's life had devolved into cliché, but at least the actress wasn't blonde, she noted. That felt refreshing. Riley was 22 when she met a 37-year-old Elon Musk in 2008 at a London bar. According to her interviews, Elon seemed sweet and shy. He asked permission before placing his hand on her knee, which she found endearing. Then 10 days later, he proposed. She laughed until she realized he wasn't joking. By 2010, they married in a lavish ceremony at Dornoch Cathedral in Scotland, the same place Madonna had her son baptized. Fireworks lit the sky and looked like a fairy tale, but this wouldn't be a happy ever-after fairy tale. The wedding only lasted 2 years. In January 2012, Elon announced their divorce on Twitter, writing, "It was an amazing 4 years. I will love you forever. You will make someone very happy one day." He told Forbes they'd taken time apart to see if absence makes the heart grow fonder, but unfortunately it hadn't. He still loved her, but wasn't in love with her. Riley received a $4.2 million settlement per their prenuptial agreement. But here's where things start to get weird. 18 months later, in July 2013, they remarried. Yes, the same couple, the same man who said marriage was far too difficult. The same woman who'd already received millions in a divorce settlement. They got married again, with Riley explaining to the press that it felt silly to be together unmarried after having been married. That second marriage lasted 3 years. In December 2014, Elon filed for divorce again, then withdrew the petition 7 months later. What game was he playing? Finally, in March 2016, Riley filed for divorce herself, citing that they'd been living separately for 6 months. By October 2016, their second divorce was finalized. This time, Riley received an additional $16 million, bringing her total settlements to over $20 million. Then, things went from weird to remarkable. Despite 2 marriages, 3 divorce filings, and 2 divorces, Riley and Musk remained close friends. She defended him publicly, described him as emotional and passionate rather than cold and robotic. In 2024, she married actor Thomas Brody Sangster from Love Actually, and Elon attended the wedding as a guest. So, what happened between attempts? Why did Elon Musk marry and divorce the same woman twice? The answer seems to be that he never learned to turn off his work obsession. Riley once described being married to him as being with a storm. You can't stop it. You can only survive it. She'd sit beside him for hours while he stared at code or engineering diagrams. When she spoke, he'd nod without hearing. He'd sleep on factory floors to meet Tesla production deadlines. That discipline built two revolutionary companies, but didn't leave room for intimacy. Elon clearly had a dark pattern. He couldn't sustain relationships. After Riley, Elon dated actress Amber Heard from 2016 to 2018. That relationship was intense, public, and ultimately doomed. They had multiple breakups and dramatic reconciliations. Musk admitted that he couldn't be happy without love despite repeatedly failing to maintain it. Then came Claire Boucher, the experimental Canadian musician known as Grimes. They crossed paths with Elon through the strangest possible meet-cute, a shared joke about an AI thought experiment called Rocco's Basilisk. Here was someone who spoke his language of futurism and technology but filtered through art and chaos rather than engineering and efficiency. They made their public debut at the 2018 Met Gala, and it looked like the collision of two different universes. They had 3 children together, XAE812 and Exa Dark Sidereal, nicknamed Y, born in December 2021, and Technomechanicus called Tau, born in late 2023. The names became memes, and the relationship became spectacle, but not the fun kind. Elon's pattern had emerged again. In September 2021, Elon told Page 6 they were probably semi-separated. His work required him in Texas. Her work kept her in Los Angeles. By March 2022, Grimes confirmed they'd broken up, though she described him as my best friend and the love of my life. Then came the revelation that shattered everything. In July 2022, court documents revealed Elon had fathered twins in November 2021 with Shervon Zeles, an executive at his company Neuralink. The babies were born weeks before Grimes, and Elon welcomed their daughter Exa via surrogate. Grimes claimed she discovered the twins around the same time as the public. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was public and very humiliating. In September 2023, their relationship deteriorated into legal warfare. Grimes filed a petition in California court to establish parental rights, while Elon filed a custody suit in Texas the same day. The jurisdictional battle became strategic. California has no cap on child support payments, but Texas limits support to $2,760 per month for 3 children. For a man worth over $300 billion, that difference was astronomical. Grimes fought back, but she was fighting an uphill battle against the world's richest man with a fraction of his resources. Her mother Sandy Garasino made a public plea on X in July 2024, begging Elon to return the children's passports so they could visit their 93-year-old great-grandmother who was in palliative care. The great-grandmother never saw them, and she died without that final meeting. The custody case finally settled in August 2024 in Travis County, Texas. The terms remained sealed, but the damage was permanent. And speaking of damage, we haven't talked about the pain that broke Elon. Vivian Jenna Wilson, born Xavier Alexander Musk on April 15, 2004, is one of the twins from Elon's marriage to Justine. For 16 years, she lived as her father's son. Then in 2020, she came out as transgender to her aunt and broke contact with Elon immediately. She no longer wished to be related to him in any way. She adopted her mother Justine's maiden name, erasing Musk completely from her identity. Elon found out about her transition from his biographer Walter Isaacson, not from Vivian herself or Justine. Elon was excited about the news, but that changed rapidly. He didn't accept Vivian's transition and claimed he'd been tricked into signing documents authorizing puberty blockers when Vivian was 16. He even said his child had been affected by what he described as the woke mind virus. Vivian fought back publicly. In her first interview with NBC News, she called her father cold, quick to anger, uncaring, and narcissistic. She said he'd been absent during her childhood, present maybe 10% of the time. She revealed he'd harassed her for displaying femininity and queerness from a young age. By 2025, Vivian appeared on the cover of Teen Vogue. She moved to Japan to study, returned to Los Angeles to pursue modeling, and signed with CAA. She was carving out her own identity, completely separate from her father's empire. When asked about Elon, she didn't hesitate. He's a pathetic man-child. Why should I be scared of this man? Because he's rich. She hadn't spoken to him since 2020. To her, he was already dead. From Justine to Talulah to Grimes and Vivian, everyone who gets close to Elon Musk eventually describes the same experience. Elon was always emotionally unavailable. When someone needs connection, he offers solutions. When they need presence, he's already solving the next engineering problem. When they ask to be seen, he's busy building the future. Justine felt like an employee he'd fire. Talulah described surviving a storm. Grimes watched him become unrecognizable. Vivian experienced him as cold and narcissistic. Even Riley, who defends him publicly and calls him her perfect ex-husband, acknowledges the fundamental truth. Being with Elon means accepting he's never fully present. His mind lives 5 years ahead, calculating colony designs for Mars while you're asking about dinner plans. But here's where it gets sad. Elon Musk has repeatedly said in interviews that he can't be happy unless he's in love. During a 2017 Rolling Stone profile, he admitted that loneliness